You should be on the 1.3 worksheet, which is the Introduction to Chemistry notes. Let's start off by defining what chemistry is. The book definition is that it is the study of matter and the changes it undergoes. All right, so if we're going to tackle that definition, we probably need to define what matter is. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Basically, mass is something that is a measure of about the amount of matter in the substance. A lot of times when people think of mass, they think like, oh, we're going to put it on a scale. You actually are going to put to find mass, you're going to put it on something called a balance, where you compare the weight of the object to known weights. All right, a balance in a science lab would be finding mass. We have balances in lab that are electronic. All right, and that's what typically we'll use. We won't use this triple beam balance that is pictured. But the key is to not confuse that with weight. Weight is the effect of gravity on that mass. So your weight would theoretically change depending on which gravitational object you are closest to. So we typically associate weight with the Earth. The moon's gravity is less, and therefore if you're on the moon, your weight would change. But your mass, the amount of matter that's making you up, the amount of atoms that you have, would stay the same. So if you look here, the moon's gravity is about 1/6 of Earth. So if you take your weight and divide by 6, that will tell you your weight on the moon. So if we go back here to our definition of chemistry, it's the study of matter, so things that have mass and take up space, and the changes it undergoes. So typically we think small. We think of things like chemicals when we think of chemistry. In order to study matter, we want to know what makes it up and but also how it behaves when we basically put it in the same space with other matter. And typically we do this with different types of chemicals. So we have down here at the bottom, what is a chemical? It's any substance that has a definite composition, meaning anything that has a set ratio of, you could say set ratio of atoms. So for instance, water is a chemical because water is H2O. It has 2 hydrogens for every 1 oxygen, and that is a defined composition. There are other ways to have a definite composition, which we'll talk about throughout this quarter and throughout this semester. But just keep in mind that that is our chemical definition. We will definitely be interacting with chemicals this year and taking a look at how they behave and what changes they undergo. Also, when we talk about chemistry, we are dealing with the submicroscopic level. At this point in your educational journey, you've probably dealt with the macroscopic level and the microscopic level, but you've probably not dealt a whole lot with the submicroscopic level. So the macroscopic level is what you can see with your naked eye. You do this on a daily basis. You just walking through the halls at Centerville High School, you can make macroscopic observations. Things like smells, things that you witness with your eye, like a book falling off of a desk. Okay, those are macroscopic observations. Microscopic observations are things you can't see with the naked eye or you need a microscope for. So if you remember in biology class, you probably looked at some onion cells under a microscope. That's microscopic observations. You're magnifying it and seeing things that you couldn't see with your naked eye. But in this class, we're going to spend most of our time right here in the submicroscopic level. This is when we're looking at things that you can't even see with a microscope. All right, we have electron microscopes that are just getting powerful enough they can see like outlines of molecules and things like that. But the level of magnification to see these things really isn't available to most high schools and even universities. But this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the very simplest form of matter, atoms, molecules, and how those things interact when they're in close space. We're in the submicroscopic level, very, very small. So a lot of times the term nucleus can be confusing because a lot of times when people hear nucleus, they think like, oh, a cell, or they think like, oh, the nucleus of an atom. And because it's the same word, they can't figure out which one's smaller than which. Just remember, submicroscopic atoms, molecules, those are much, much smaller than something like the nucleus of a cell, which has lots of different parts, lots of different atoms and molecules bonded together. Within chemistry, there are all kinds of different branches. We have organic, inorganic, physical, analytical, and biochem. Physical chemistry and inorganic is where we're going to spend most of our time this year. Just behavior changes, matter and how it relates to energy, those are the kind of things that we study in a general chemistry class. We do offer organic chemistry here at the high school. Most people don't take that until college. Analytical chem is basically taking an unknown substance and trying to break down and figure out what it's made out of. And then biochemistry is the chemistry within living organisms. You've already studied this. If you remember Krebs cycle and the Calvin cycle from the cell in biology class, that's biochemistry. And there's a lot more details we can get into there, but that is chemistry. It's how those molecules are interacting and behaving when in contact with one another. So what you really need to take from this today is what chemistry is. It's the study of matter and how it interacts with other matter. And you need to take away the different types of branches and different types of chemistry. What we're going to do in this class is look at different chemicals, how they interact, and what that can tell us about the matter. What that can tell us about things like what kind of electron configuration it has, or what kind of molecular mass that it has. There's all kinds of things we can learn just by watching matter interact. That's what chemistry really is. Good job today. We will see you soon. Have a good one.